This is 5 on 20 News with Joel Foster coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It's Thursday, September 14th, almost the weekend. Let's talk local headlines, shall we? All right, immigration attorneys suspect that Motel 6 locations in the state of Arizona are calling ICE on undocumented guests, according to a Phoenix New Times report. The suspicion began when 33-year-old Manuel Rodriguez Juarez was taken to a detention facility by ICE after he checked into a Motel 6 after having an argument with his wife. While Juarez admitted he was not authorized to be in the country, he wondered how ICE found out he was at the hotel. The New Times found court records showing that ICE agents made at least 20 arrests between February and August at Motel 6 location, at the same Motel 6 location, which is about one every 2 weeks. When questioned about this, Motel 6 referred the New Times to its corporate hotline, but after repeated phone calls, they never responded to the questions. But employees at 2 Motel 6 locations told the paper that it was standard practice to share guest information with ICE. One employee told them that they send a report every morning to ICE. A spokesman for ICE declined to comment on the policy. An Arizona attorney said that one employee told her that ICE is paying $200 per person for the front desk clerk to report, but this may be a rumor. Phoenix police also said various hotels and motels have shared their guest list with officers, but they refused to specify if they are related to Motel 6. According to a 2015 Supreme Court decision, the city of Phoenix cannot require motels to turn over immigration information without a warrant. But if the motel chooses to do so voluntarily, then it's up to the owner. Who would have thunk that such a clean, respectable business like Motel 6 would do something like this? The New Times didn't respond to their questions. The New Times said if Motel 6 didn't respond to their questions, then they'll be forced to expose where that stain on the sheets really came from. Ooh. All right, Arizona Representative Paul Gosar played a central role in a House vote to block an EPA pollution rule related to methane. The House voted 218 to 195 to strip funding for an Obama-era rule to limit methane emissions from new oil and gas drilling sites. 11 Republicans voted against the amendment, while 3 Democrats voted to block the funding. The EPA finalized its methane rule in early 2016 as part of an Obama-era effort to limit the greenhouse gas, which has more global warming potential than carbon dioxide. During a floor debate, Gosar argued that, quote, the free market has provided an incentive to reduce methane release on its own. He said that there is no further need for the EPA to impose, quote, costly bureaucratic hurdles on these sensitive industries. Environmentalists and most Democrats have defended the rule as a method to battle climate change. Democratic Representative Betty McCollum said that there is no doubt that methane contributes to the increased levels of greenhouse gas concentrations, which then contribute to long-lasting changes in our climate. She also sounded the alarm that the hot gas released from Paul Gosar could also hasten climate change. Watch out for that. Homeland Security officials are sidestepping over a dozen federal environmental laws and regulations to replace a 2-mile section of border fence near Calexico, California, despite a legal challenge from a Tucson-based environmental group. In July, former DHS Chief John Kelly waived environmental laws and other regulations to plan for the construction of the big, beautiful border wall. In April, Tucson-based Center for Biological Diversity, along with Arizona Representative Rahul Grijalva, filed a suit to force the Trump administration to consider the environmental impacts of border enforcement and the construction of a border wall. Last week, the group expanded their lawsuit to include Kelly's waiver, arguing that his authority, quote, no longer applies. This is because the waiver authority was created under the 2006 Secure Fence Act, which mandated DHS to build 700 miles of border fence, which was completed years ago. An attorney for the Center for Biological Diversity said that Homeland Security doesn't have perpetual power to toss crucial conservation laws away for any border project it wants until the end of time. The Sierra Club also objected to the waiver, claiming that they, quote, roll back protections for public health, farmland, animals, public participation, and environmental safeguards. DHS responded with a statement that read, blah, 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 MAGA, MAGA, MAGA is all we want. All right, the city of Tucson will pay the state $100,000 to cover Arizona's costs of prosecuting a case where it was alleged that the city illegally destroyed confiscated guns. Last month, the state Supreme Court sided with the state, ruling that a Tucson program to destroy confiscated guns violated a state law established by Governor Doug Ducey in 2016. That law forbade cities in Arizona from passing laws that conflicted with state law. In that same Supreme Court ruling, they ordered the city of Tucson to pay the state $100,000 to cover the Attorney General's reasonable attorney fees, which the city agreed to. Think of this next time our state lawmakers say that giving teacher raises is a waste of taxpayer money. The state will later in the year force Tucson to pay for a memorial service for all of those guns who lost their lives too soon. Shed a tear. All right, now in national and international news. Investigators are looking into whether former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was secretly promoting a plan to build U.S.-Russian nuclear power plants in the Middle East while he was serving in the White House. Flynn was fired back in January after it was discovered that he lied about Russian contacts while serving in the Trump administration. Since then, he's become a central figure in the possible connections between the administration and Russia. According to a letter released yesterday by top Democrats who are investigating Flynn, he violated federal laws when he failed to disclose a trip he took to the Middle East in June 2015 to promote the U.S.-Russia project. This comes along with several other contacts that investigators say should have been declared when he joined the administration. The lawmakers say that failure to disclose these contacts carry a penalty of 5 years in prison. Flynn's issue could provide federal investigators with the opportunity to use the threat of jail time to persuade subjects to cooperate in the investigation. The letter says that Flynn refused to provide the committee with an explanation of the trip, but did not deny allegations of the trip or the associated foreign contacts. The consulting groups that Flynn met with included XCO Dynamics and ACU Strategic Partners, who provided information to the committee and are being asked to provide further documents. They allege that Thomas Cochran of ACU, one of the companies, said that after Flynn was fired, the project was continued and looked at as a tool for stabilizing and improving relations with Russia. The committee says that 3 sources say that Flynn traveled to Egypt and Israel in June 2015 to promote the project, where he met with government officials. Cochran says that Flynn made the trip in part to argue that the plan would be in Israel's best interests. The plan called for the creation of a group of U.S., French, Dutch, Russian, Gulf Arab, British, Ukrainian, and Israeli companies to design and build 40 nuclear power reactors. Flynn says he was simply taking his yearly Middle Eastern vacation to remind himself why he doesn't like Muslims. That actually makes sense. Independent Senator Bernie Sanders released his long-awaited Medicare for All bill yesterday, 4 years after he submitted a similar bill. Under the legislation, Americans would receive a universal Medicare card that provides comprehensive health care services. This includes hospital stays, doctor visits, substance abuse treatment, dental, vision, and reproductive care, which includes abortion. The only costs involved would include up to a $250 copay for prescription drugs. That would include incentives for using generic medications. Legislation would also allow the government to negotiate with drug companies to further lower prices. Long-term care, such as nursing homes, would not be covered under the bill, but Sanders says that the issue will be addressed in a separate bill. These changes would be rolled over a 4-year period, with the first year lowering the Medicare eligibility age to 55. In the second year, the eligibility age would drop to 45, then 35. By the 4th year, everyone would be eligible. The bill has not been scored yet by the Congressional Budget Office, but it's estimated to cost nearly $1.4 trillion. This will be paid for through a new 2.2% income tax on all Americans, 6.2% tax on employers, and further tax hikes for the wealthy, and a transaction tax on Wall Street traders. You know how much we love our taxes here. Sanders was joined by New York Senator Kristen Gillibrand and Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, as Sanders called the current healthcare system, quote, insane and unaffordable. Sanders promised that the average family would benefit from the legislation because, quote, you will no longer be writing checks to private insurance companies. More than a dozen Democrats have signed onto the legislation, but it faces a steep and some would say impossible path to being approved. Congressional Republicans and moderate Democrats oppose the legislation, along with the White House, who called it a, quote, horrible idea. But Bernie dismissed the criticisms by saying, to my Republican colleagues, please don't lecture us on health care. In the past few months, you have shown the American people what you stand for, referring to Republican attempts to dismantle the Affordable Care Act. According to a recent poll by the Kaiser Family Foundation, about 53% of Americans support a national health care plan, which is up from 50% last year and 40% in 1998 and 2000, so it's been increasing. On Wednesday, White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that, quote, I can't think of anything worse than having government be involved in your health care instead of less involved. She added, well, maybe being charged $900 for blood work. I guess that's worse. Yeah, I agree. The Senate killed a proposal by Senator Rand Paul to repeal the war authorizations made for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, along with military actions in a group of other countries. The Senate voted 61-36 to scuttle Paul's amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, which was signed in 2001 and 2002 when the wars began. Democrats and Republicans joined to defeat the amendment, which Paul criticized on the floor. He said that, quote, I don't think that anyone with an ounce of intellectual honesty believes that these authorizations from 16 years ago and 14 years ago authorized war in 7 different countries. While Paul was referring to the myriad of military actions taken in the name of the war on terror, which has spread to countries such as Pakistan, Somalia, Libya, and many others. Democrat Tim Kaine and Arizona Republican Jeff Flake supported Paul's amendment, with Flake saying that it's way past time for a vote. But opponents argued that repealing the 2 war resolutions on such a quick timeline would endanger military operations in Afghanistan and against ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and send mixed signals to troops. In other words, it's the same support the troops argument that got us into the mess in the first place. Paul hopes to reintroduce the amendment using the name Super American 9/11 Never Forget Battle Plans, hoping that senators fail to read it and vote on the bill based on the name. Good luck, Rand Paul. All right, the EPA delayed a rule for 2 years that would limit water pollution for coal-fired power plants. The 2 years are intended to give the EPA time to revise the details of the Obama-era regulations, which were created in 2015. The delays specifically deal with 2 provisions that mandate limits or pretreatment for flue gas desulfurization, wastewater, and bottom ash transport waste, which both come from burning coal. Power plants would have to start complying with the requirements by November 2018 under the current policy, with the 2-year delay. Coal power plant operators had asked the government to roll back the regulation earlier this year. Because Trump ran on a pro-coal platform and has said that, quote, I love coal, he's been willing to grant the wishes of the industry. Many of the areas where coal remains a significant economic force voted overwhelmingly for Trump in the 2016 election, such as West Virginia and Pennsylvania. Opponents of the original rules said that it was part of the Obama administration's war on coal and said that it would cause plant closures. Environmental groups, including the Sierra Club, slammed the EPA decision, calling EPA Chief Scott Pruitt a, quote, henchman for the fossil fuel industry. Earlier this year, a series of emails was released showing Pruitt's cozy relationship with gas and oil companies in his native state of Oklahoma. Since taking over, Pruitt has made a number of decisions benefiting the fossil fuel industry. But the EPA says that the delay will save $27.5 million for the industry and $36 million over 2 years. Apparently, you can put a price on human lives, and that figure is $36 million. At least now we know. All right, this was 5 on 20 News with Joel Foster. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook accounts for all the latest Creative Tucson content. Go out and do that. Feel free to bother us at info@creativetucson.org. Thanks for watching. Remember to tune in tonight at 6:30 for all new Zone of Politics Live with Jim Nutzel. All right, stay creative, Tucson. We'll see you later. Annie Hawk.